Excellent. How many have you guys started real estate investing? Like, where are you at in your journeys? Just starting, had a couple deals, or where's everybody at? Zero deals. 0 deals? Okay. 1 to 5. 10 up? 10 plus? Sweet. Okay. Cool. Anybody own a hospitality asset? Short-term rental, hotel? Okay. Cool. So nobody will know if I'm lying to you. Just kidding. Okay. Cool. So we do wealth builder circles. So guys, this happens. Usually it's the third Thursday of every month. We've been doing it for almost 2 years now. But what we're doing is usually pick a real estate topic. We might have a guest speaker. We might have just a deep dive on a deal like we're doing today. But really the whole point is getting people together who are investing in real estate, pursuing financial freedom, and we'll talk a little bit more about why we do that. But I have found so much value in having other people along the journey to bounce ideas off, to get guidance from. I've been in accountability groups and masterminds really for the better part of the last 7-8 years, and it's been instrumental on my journey. So here's kind of the rough idea of what we're going to get down tonight with intros, wins, and housekeeping. I always like to try to get some wins out of you guys. So what's some successes that you had in the last few months since we met? And then we'll get into the content, and then obviously we can do some networking. I want to figure out if anybody needs a deal or has a deal. I want to partner you guys up over here, because I think that's sometimes we come to this event and we have deals in our back pocket, or we're looking for deals, and it's kind of nice to be able to pair people up. So keep that in the back of your mind if you're looking for something specific, or if you have something specific, see if you can pair some people up. Okay, cool. So like I said, Wealth Builder Circle, this is a Facebook community. We used to do it on something called Circle, which is kind of an online community platform. We took it off that, mostly because nobody was utilizing it, so Facebook is free. But we put a lot of things on Facebook, like our due diligence checklist, or dealing out calculator, and some of the other kind of items that we have accumulated over the last 2 years of doing these things. So celebrate some wins. Last 30, 60 days, you got a marriage, which is a win, so congrats. What else we got? No wins? Yeah.
So it's not technically real estate, but I put in 2 offers on 2 small businesses. Got rejected on both, but I did it.
But you can't get an offer accepted unless you submit it, right? So that's awesome.
What were the businesses?
One was a landscaping company, and then the other one was a dog daycare.
Nice.
Sweet.
You know both really well, or just acquiring businesses? Because
I'm just really good at the back end stuff. So I look for companies that have really not great processes or haven't utilized marketing very well. And both of these happened to fit where they were just people who kind of ran because they.
You know how to scale them and create leverage.
That's the goal.
Yes, that is very useful. All right.
So when you close on that business, you come up here and you teach us about it, because it'd be sweet.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. You follow Cody Sanchez and that whole crew? Yeah, Contrarian Thinking. Nice. Okay.
All right.
Sweet. Congrats, man. Who else? Yeah.
Unofficial triplex in Woodbury. It's not legal.
Woodbury has triplexes? Yes.
And it's 3 separate entrances, 3 laundry rooms, 3 kitchens, but they say only one unrelated person can live there unless operating as a group home. And it's super high end, so I might make the main floor owner suite super high end, sell it typically to be a group home.
Yeah.
But they're strict about Airbnb, peer space, so it's like, but it's an interesting one.
Nice.
Figuring it out.
Congrats. Is that a courthouse step by?
That's not. They were on MLS at 1.2 million, dropped it to 789. I got them at 690 after inspection to 675. There's mold that nobody knew about, but
Yeah.
I can deal with mold.
Yeah.
So I'm mold company.
One of the 12 companies you have is mold remediation. Yeah.
But it's like 6,500 square feet, so about $100 a square foot.
Okay.
So it's good deal, but it's like kind of wonky.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, both of these, you just gotta freaking sling offers. Like, we're seeing so many opportunities right now where sellers are getting a little bit shaky, where we're seeing some really good, surprisingly accepted offers. So I had I do coaching as well. My coach literally told me this last week. She's like, pull everything up, offer everything 82% of what you think market value is. See what sticks. Why not? You need it 82% of what you think it's worth. It's literally what banks do, right? So why not? Swing offers. Who else? Any other ones?
I got two last month for single family, and then that commercial.
Yes. Commercial done a rock test or?
Still with that.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Who's how many units? The commercial?
8 units, 6 are filled.
Nice.
We got a master lease on one, the big one, and yeah, got 2. So.
Congrats, dude. Sweet. What else? Any other wins?
I don't know. I'm just happy to be here, man. I walked in, everyone looked at me, and I'm still sitting down here, and I'm alive, so that's good.
Yes, I mean we do this every time because it's important to talk about the wins. If you guys have ever read the book The Gap in the Gain, phenomenal book, talks a lot about how you measure yourself from where you come, not to like where you're trying to get to, and that's important because I was telling a lot of these guys the last 3 to 4 months, it feels like every day is like a kick in the teeth. Like real estate investing isn't always super easy, but the last 3 or 4 months has been a fun challenge for me, taking on a lot of projects that I haven't done before. So it's been a learning experience. Literally walked into work the other day, the office the other day, and it was Friday, and I was trying to think to myself what day it was, and I guessed Tuesday, and I was wrong by a long shot. So that's a couple months it's been, but nonetheless, there's still some good wins. So if I don't know you, this is the 30-second background on myself. My kind of real estate investing journey started with that little snippet on the top where I almost lost my job in 2013, I think. Son was like 3 months old. Maybe had a couple $1,000 in the bank, like most Americans, was living paycheck to paycheck, and that sucked. So I found did some deep diving. I found Dave Ramsey, tried that path for a little bit, found Bigger Pockets, and lo and behold, real estate investing is income, debt, and expenses. So it's super basic. So not a very smart guy like myself was able to figure it out, and started buying some properties. Went to multifamily, and we're up to 137 units. Some of those are syndicated, so general partners on those as well, but. We've got the Superior Real Estate team, which we focus on 2 to 4 unit transactions, so helping clients house hack, build a portfolio, things along those lines. And then a new addition to this because, well, I've had my own portfolio with 4 different property management companies, and can't find one that would treat it like I would. So we started a property management company. So, and then this, so Well Build a Circle. Like I said, we've been doing it for about almost 2 years, once a month, and some other things as well. What's up, sir? Alright, so why are we discussing really real estate investing in general, financial freedom? How many of you guys just like love tenants and toilets? No. But we do real estate investing for other reasons, right? Financial freedom is one thing, but more important, time freedom. How many of you guys on a random Tuesday can go take a flight somewhere and do whatever you want?
Goals.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal. So it's important, especially when we're diving into new topics and new subjects and have big goals. A lot of people start with this like $10,000 a month passive income goal, kind of like that round number that everybody goes through. But when you're doing that, when you're starting off, when you're doing small multifamily, single family flips or whatever, and you're squeaking out a couple $100 per unit, per door, or whatever, sometimes it can get a little bit daunting and trying to figure out where you're going and why you're doing it. We're doing it for this reason, right? So we can kind of have more autonomy over our time, what we're doing, where we're doing it, and the whole cliche of doing what I want, when I want, with who I want. So, all right. So here's kind of the objective, and it's mainly this one. I want to talk about the deal. I want to go through the case study that is the deal. But at the end of the day, I think we talk a lot about seller financing. People understand it in theory, but if you had your offer to a seller accepted tomorrow, would you know where to go? Would you know what documents? Would you know who to contact to get it done? Some of you guys might maybe have done a deal like that before, but I think it's one of the things that in theory people know, in practice they don't. So I want to go over literally what documents you need, where you can go to find them, who you can contact to get them done, and how you would structure a deal. Anything else you guys want to make sure we get out of today? Cool. I love having this be conversational too. So if you have any questions, have any insight, throw it out here. Make it a little bit more conversational, less like download. Cool, so we'll go through finding the property, analyzing it, structuring the deal, operating it. Lots of learning mistakes. We're gonna go through that too, and then some numbers today. So, Cool. So here's the case study. This is Melky's. Fun on the Lakes Resort. So, fun little backstory on this one. I rented this thing for my family reunion for the last like 8 years. It's a cool cabin. There's 3 different properties on it. One of them sleeps like 37 people, and we've got a big family. So we rent 2 out of the 3 buildings there. So pretty familiar with it. 20 beds, 10 baths, sleeps 57 for the whole community. Lakeside in Emily. And it's been operating as a resort in Emily, Minnesota for about the last 20 years. It's bought in 2004, I think, for the existing owners, but 0 presence on VRBO, 0 presence on Airbnb. Have literally rented to the same people for the last 20 years, over and over and over and over again. So if you look at their financials, their Schedule E or whatever, and their tax return, it's like 60 grand, like continuously for the last however many years. So you knew it was a good opportunity from that perspective because there was literally no growth, there was literally no marketing. It was kind of a good opportunity from that perspective. So how did I find it? Well, like I said, I stayed at this place for the last 7 or 8 years. My family rented it every year for our family reunion. But I recognized the opportunity, and I missed an opportunity a while back. And I'll tell you a little story. I was driving by actually Ferry Street in Anoka. So there's a Sinclair on like Ferry Street in Dayton River Road, if anybody's familiar with that location. Got a little dinosaur out there. You go down Dayton River Road by like another half a block, there's a sweet, looks like an 8 to 12 unit apartment complex, brick, pitched roof. Looks like the perfect asset like that I like to buy. They had a for rent sign stuck, like handwritten, stuck in the yard. So like we were driving by there, I had my son in the back, like write down the number, because if you see that, like, of course you should call them and figure out what the heck they're doing and what they want to sell. Never did. That number sat in my console for, I don't know, 9 or 10 months, and I drove by it. New brand, new signs, and they sold it. I'm like, God. So we were sitting around the fire at one time at the family reunion, and I got the contact from my cousin who did the bookings for this lady, and I'm like, all right, not gonna have that opportunity to miss again, right? So reached out to them. They had thought about selling, but they've got a bunch of different family members involved, and they had a problem. Their problem was that they needed a place to hold their family reunion on a regular basis. How freaking easy is that to solve? Pretty easy. So we wrote it into the mortgage, actually, that every year for the next 5 years, they get 1 week between July 1st and July 30th. They get to pick their week or whatever, that they could use the whole entire place for free. And that was enough to get them off the fence and be like, all right, we're going to be done with this. We can still use it. We can have our family together and make things happen by getting this thing sold. So there's a little bit more to that. We did put a dollar amount to that. So their thought was, and this was kind of a clever suggestion from them, if I sell it, buy it, and then sell it in a year, like how do we know, how do we make that stick for them, right? So we put a dollar amount to that week. I think it was like 8 grand or whatever. And we put that into the mortgage as well. If I sold it before that, I would have to basically pay them the remaining years at $8,000 a week. So it kind of put a little bit of a reassurance in it for them as well. So cool. So here's kind of the analysis, and you maybe see that, but I'll talk through it. So the current financials was freaking back in the napkin. And this is, if you guys ever bought anything off market, you might be used to this. You're gonna get a rent roll that's written on a spreadsheet or written on a piece of paper that they're gonna hand you, right? This was kind of the same thing. We had some tax returns, but they really didn't have a whole lot. It was managed in Excel, which was maybe a step up than I was expecting, and there wasn't a whole lot from a financials perspective. They literally rented it from the beginning of June to the end of August, and like I said, it was basically right around $60,000 consistently for the last 5 years, year over year over year over year. So never ever rented it outside of those months. So, and then there's some caretakers on site that were living for free, completing the turns and cleaning. They weren't charging any cleaning fees. You guys have stayed in short-term rental before. Cleaning fees are pretty standard, right? You own a cleaning company that's a short-term rental, so you know that well. Whatever you charge, you're just gonna bill it back to the guest, and they're gonna cover it, right? So, so that was another opportunity as well. So we started charging the cleaning fees, and the caretakers are staying there doing it for free anyways. So, here's kind of how I did the analysis, and this is like, I'm a multifamily guy, so I think projecting income for multifamily is a heck of a lot easier than it is for short-term rental. So this is how I went about doing it. I had the 3 different buildings. There's a lodge that it's a 12-bedroom, 12-bedroom, 7-bath lodge, a 4x2 home. It's actually a 7x3, but there's a 2x1 like underneath split level there where the caretakers stay. And then that 2x1 cabin. So I went and split peak rate and low rate. So obviously peak rate being the 90 days in the summer, June, July, and August. Kind of put what I thought the nightly rate would be, the weekly rate, and then put 85% occupancy for the summer and 30% occupancy for the off season is what I did. And that's how I got to what I think the top line is going to be is right around $205,000. Assuming that I hit those numbers, it's looking pretty good right now. That's where it should pan out to be. So here's kind of how the stack from the capital stack perspective showed up. So what's up, guys? And you guys know what the capital stack is? You do. Yeah. Okay. No. So we talked about this a couple times over the last few meetups, and if there's one thing that I would say, if you're trying to do creative financing, if you're trying to do commercial deals, understanding the capital stack and how it works is super important. So we'll get into that, but this is kind of how the loan breakdown showed up. First position was a bank at about $3,700, 36 and some change. Second position was a seller finance note at $708 a month, and then the expense is about $52,000 a year. That's how we got the free cash flow. Just a hair under 100, so I guess the marketing's false since it's not 100 grand, but 99,788.20 cents. And like I said, the assumptions are 85% occupancy during the summer months, and they were basically 100%, but they were obviously wicked low too. So, and then 30% for the off season. Questions? CC?
On that occupancy, is that based on your numbers or their numbers?
Well, my numbers. They were basically 100%, but they were charging super low. So they had it booked out from June 1st to the end of August, like back to back to back to back. But to the same people for the last 20 years over and over and over and over and over again. So I came up with 85% just knowing that market, knowing the demand for Lakeside, knowing my assumption, when we'll see if it's right, is that a place that sleeps 37 like that one lodge is not very common. So I think that's going to be in high demand, and we'll see. So, and then there's that other buildings, like I said, it's a 4-2 home. It's a 4-2 up top, and then it's a 2-1 down below, and there's caretakers there that are living there right now that are doing the cleanings. The other thought is that it sleeps 14 right now with just those 4 beds up top. You could probably get 21 to 22 people if those caretakers were ever to leave. Like I said, we already kind of baked in the cleaning fees that we're charging guests, so it would kind of cover that aspect as well. So that might happen in the coming years as well. But okay, so capital stack. So this is the same exact slide that we probably looked at 5 times over the last year and a half that we've had this. But like I said, super important just to understand kind of how these things work out for deals. Lower on the capital stack is the safer, right? Because as you go up, it's more risk. So this is what it typically looks like, right? When you buy a property, 100% of the capital stack is your debt and your equity. So 75%, that says 7%, that's wrong. 75% is usually bank debt, and then 25% is equity. That's usually your standard capital stack. You're going to throw 25% down on a deal and buying it that way. For this deal, oh, there we go. See, 75% bank. For this deal, what we did is we did the first position, bank, at $465,000, and then the second position, seller, at $200,000 at 4.25, and interest only. So 0 principal payment on that, interest only for the entire 5 years, balloon payment at the end of the 5 years. So no amortization needed, nothing needed on that front. And then there's this little part at the top, because if you guys, the purchase price is $640, that's what we bought this whole thing for. And $465 plus $200,000 is obviously more than $640,000 purchase price. So that's how we ended up getting $21,000 basically paid to us at close to buy the deal. So it covers some of the closing costs, which beautiful thing about seller financing is there's not as much closing costs. There's still a bank in this, so there's some there. But was able to walk away with a little over $21,000 to buy the deal. So seller starting point was between $500 and $1 million. That's kind of what they wanted. And this is my first hospitality asset. So I really wanted to de-risk it. So obviously started pretty low, and we landed right around $640. But what I was looking at is their $62,000 is what they have gross, basically very consistently for the last however many years. The total carrying cost for this thing for the entire year is about $65,000. So going into it, I knew, okay, I'm not putting any money down because we're financing the full thing. The total carrying cost is right around 65 grand. They already got repeat customers that are coming in at 62K. So the risk there is pretty low, right? There's very limited risk. There are a couple kind of hiccups or hurdles, I would say, on the bank financing. So when you go to a bank, everybody thinks like if I get seller financing, I'm gonna get the bank to carry this portion, I'm gonna get the seller to cover this portion, and then everybody's gonna be happy no matter what. Well, what happens a lot of times is the bank is in first position, they're like, well, we don't care what you get for seller financing, we're gonna lower our proceeds to make sure that you've got some skin in the game. And that's what the first couple of banks that I went to, they're like, well, yeah, we would loan 75% of the value of it, but we need to have you 20% no matter what. I'm like, well, I'm not putting 20% down when the seller's carrying, you know, basically that portion of it back. So, long story short, we shopped a couple different banks, and we found a bank who would do it for 5% equity down. So they wanted us to put 5% into the deal, 32 grand in, 30, I think 32, whatever, into the deal, and leave it in there, and then they would kind of bridge that gap between the seller financing and the purchase price. Little kind of tidbit here, local banks, small community banks, credit unions, not national banks, are a heck of a lot more flexible, because talked to that guy and he must have been having a fantastic day, but I convinced him to, instead of putting 5% in the deal, to put 5% in his credit union in a CD until it hit a certain debt coverage service ratio, and then that would be released back to me. So I technically put 5% into his institution, but it's not into the deal. So as soon as that thing hits a 1.25 DSCR, I'll get that money back, and in the meantime, it's earning 4.25 on the CD in their bank.
And then they're leveraging it out and making profit on the back end of it. That's actually this.
What's that?
Right, because they're bringing it into the institution, right? So then their little attraction reserved it out.
Yeah, and they know that they've got at least that 5% in their control,
Right.
and they're not going to give it back to me until they see the property performing at 1.25 DSCR.
Right. Like a really complicated security deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's important, because a lot of times, like I said, people think, okay, I'm gonna go get seller financing, I'll get the bank over here, I'll get the seller over here, and it'll all be good. But in commercial deals, this hospitality asset, 5 units and up, any commercial deal, the bank's gonna look at all of that first position note and the second position note, and do what's called the debt service coverage ratio to see where you're at. Does anybody know what the debt service coverage ratio is? So it's a ratio of the debt service, so all the debt service, your bank payment basically, and the net operating income that property produces. So the bank wants to know that if you've got a $10,000 debt service with all positions including first and second, that they usually want to see a 1.25, so whatever that is, 12,500 on the NOI, to make sure you've got more than enough to cover that debt service. So like I said, if people go do a seller financing deal and like, well, I don't care if it's 10% interest on this and 5% interest on this, I'm getting it for no money. A lot of times banks can say, no, your debt service is X and your NOI on this, over here doesn't support it. And honestly, if you're an investor, you should be looking at that anyways, right? Because why would you buy a deal? If it's no money down, you still don't want to buy it if you're losing money every month, right? Yeah.
Question for you.
See,
You talked about that second bullet point there, you discussed earlier about the seller carryback.
yeah, so thank you. Back to the cap stack. I talked to the sellers early about it, but I didn't tell them about the full capital stack intentionally, because I didn't want them to feel I don't want them to know I'm going into the deal with no money down. Because sometimes I think sellers are like, well, you gotta put something in the deal. Like, even though it doesn't affect them and what the rates are and what they're getting out of it, they just don't want that. But it's also a little bit more risky for them, because they'll see the full first position at 465 and then their second position on top of it. So for some reason, if I had to fire sale this thing at 500, the bank's getting that 465 back. They're in second position. They're not getting much back. So, so we left that out of the conversation until close to the end. And at the end of the day, what's the personal guarantee? My balance sheet's on it. So like, it's, if it goes south, I'm still liable, right? And they could come after me anyway. So, but for whatever reason, sometimes sellers are like, well, you got to put something in the deal. But if it makes sense without doing it, why would you?
How did you convince them that doing seller financing in this context was good for them versus just waiting for someone who's going to, just get a normal structured deal for 6.25?
Yeah, I'll answer it a couple different ways. One of the reasons I like this asset is because multifamily, small multifamily, single family, it's very easy for sellers to go get an opinion of value, and it's pretty damn close most of the time. Friggin' estimates within 7-9% on, could be within 2% on single families, right, that are in a nice little area. So there's no like opaque, there's no ambiguity in price and value. So one, I think they didn't really know what it was valued. I didn't know what it was valued either, so we kind of found our way there together. But there was a single family home that sold for like $850 down the road, and this is 3 buildings, and I knew what it could rent for, right? So that was long story short of I think we got to 640. I think they sold it for more than it was worth. So I won't say we're doing me a favor, but that was part of the negotiations of getting to that price. The other side of it is they wanted a little bit of passive income anyway. So I mean, $700 a month between the partners isn't a whole lot, but one, it's away from the kind of spread out capital gains, and they knew that, so they could take the however many $100,000 it was on the initial hit, and then they could have the $200,000 of plan for it a few years later. But they like the income. They like having some connection to the property. There was some emotional ties to it for owning it for 20 years. So even though they didn't own it, being a lender on it kind of checked that box for them as well. So there wasn't a whole lot of selling. Like people think like I gotta convince the seller to do it. We've had 3 deals in the last week that are like, shit, that sounds cool. Like I'll do seller financing. Like that's my whole goal is to buy all these properties, pay them off, and then flip them to other people on notes to still get the money. So yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of convincing. Did help, the dude's in mortgage, so it helps that he kind of gets it as well, and understands the terms. So wasn't working with, a complete person who has no idea about real estate.
When you say you had no money in the deal, but you still have to put the 5% in the CD, right?
Yes.
So it's not technically in the deal, but you still have the 20 in cash.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
You got
Yeah.
paid to make an investment on security funds.
And how does the terms dictate when you hit that 1.25 DSCR? Is it like over a certain period of time you have to hit that?
As soon as I show a tax return that shows 1.25 DSCR. Yep.
Okay.
Basically, every year you can recheck it.
Yeah.
So you can't go there tomorrow and say, hey, we just had it.
No, which
Flip your money right back to you.
which in some you will, like some commercial lenders, they'll take what they call a trillion 3. So if you've got a trillion 3 that shows a 1.25 DSCR, they'll give you that back. But in this case, they want to see a full year. They want to see the tax returns, which kind of makes sense because it's such a seasonal product as well. But
So instead of tying that money, that 5% up in over the long term,
Correct, yeah.
You're hoping you can hit it pretty quick.
well, right, and instead of putting it in the deal, I'm putting it in an asset that's still producing money. It's still giving me a 4.25, which isn't great, and I got 21 grand in proceeds from the seller. So really, the difference of 14 grand is what I had to come out of pocket. Although I did come out of pocket more, and we'll talk about that and the learnings and the mistakes that I made. But yeah. Cool. Questions? Okay. Cool. So here's some tools, and here's where I think is going to be beneficial if you don't know how to get a seller financing deal done. Meaning, if I said yes to you tomorrow, would you know where to go, what docs to do? I think this will be helpful. So first of all, the docs that you need: mortgage secures the note to the property, right? So it records it as collateral for that note. So it's not just saying, hey, Logan, I trust you, you're gonna pay me back, we'll write it on a piece of paper and sign it. It's actually securing the property to it in second position, remember, so it's not as good as the first position. Promissory note outlines the payments and the terms. So that's where we came to. We actually started at 5%. We got through some inspections and there's some things, so I negotiated them down to 4.25. But that's the promissory note. Literally, we had our title company write it up, and they're not attorneys, so they're going to tell you go check with your attorney. And ChatGPT is maybe as good as an attorney nowadays, but it's pretty basic, right? When the payment schedule is, interest, principal, if there is any, balloon payment, if it's due, how payments can be made, how people can be notified, things like that. Actually, I'd be more than happy to send you guys a promissory note if you want the copy for your own benefit as well. And then the warranty deed transfers the title. If you are doing this off market with nobody, you obviously need to get that. If you're doing it with some representation, aka an agent, they can walk you through that as well. So the actual docs. So if you guys go to the site, and I can send this link out and send this out, there's literally standard Minnesota forms for a lot of these things, for the mortgage, for the warranty deed, for all these different types of conveyances between entity and individual, individual and entity, partnerships. You literally go on there, download the docs, and if you are with an investor-friendly title company, they will literally fill it out for you. So we got the mortgage off the state website, title company filled it out, got a promissory note that our title company has used before, tweak some of the details. You can have an attorney review, probably not a bad idea, and call it a day. So that site, you can do it. Investor-friendly title and attorney is key. Anybody know Ash with investor title? No, so if we're doing anything creative, you probably do, don't you? Yeah. If we're doing anything creative, any sort of unique structures, Ash at Investor Titles is the way to go. Other than that, we use a different title company, but she's phenomenal with the creative stuff. Vertislot, real estate attorney that we use in this as well. And then an investor-friendly realtor, which I don't know where you could find one, but I might be able to point you in the right direction if you. So yeah, these are literally all the docs. They're right in there on the state website, the promissory note. Like I said, I can send it to you, not legal advice, don't sue me. And then if you get an investor-friendly title company, they can help you out there as well. And then super helpful, because this is one of the things, it's something, it's funny that like the dumbest things sometimes will stop people from taking action, and I'm guilty of this as well. Because I used to always think like, why would I do something, like how do I do a seller financing deal? Who's gonna keep track like the amortization schedule and the principal paid and the interest, and then at the end of the day, like they gotta send a 1099 INT at the end of the year for tax purposes. Well, lo and behold, there's companies that do that for like $15 a month. So there's a servicing company, Madison Management Services is who we use after looking into a couple of them. But it's a couple $100 onboarding fee, and then it's like, I wanna say it's like $18.50 or $19 a month. Now I have a portal where I go online and I pay that mortgage. The sellers get that, 3, 4, 5 days later. They record everything, they send out the 1099 INT at the end of the year for tax purposes. If there was amortization or principal paid, they would track that schedule, the principal pay down, the balance, and everything like that. So for like less than $20 a month, you don't have to worry about it. So pretty slick. They'll do that with sub 2 deals, seller financing deals, all that good stuff.
Does that get complicated? Like, so it's assuming the seller has a mortgage, right? If you have a service over, it's them paying another service over essentially. I mean, does that bring up red flags anywhere along the process, or?
If you're doing like a sub 2 deal or something like that, potentially. The only time I've ever seen issues, and if anybody's more familiar with sub 2 deals than I am, jump in. But when insurance changes, that's usually when I've seen issues. But just from a servicing perspective, I haven't seen issues. In this case, they had a mortgage, it was a small mortgage, so they paid it up. They're carrying $200 back. I think it's $640 or whatever. So they got $400 some grand or whatever that is to pay off that little chunk and then disperse the rest of it. So they didn't have another mortgage. But yeah, if you're doing a wrap of any sort, it could get complicated. But they'll still service them. Sure. It's just on you if the first lender calls something due.
Sure.
Yeah. Sweet. Questions? Cool. So here's some mistakes, and here's the biggest one. So I teach this all the time. I screwed up royally on this one and a couple other deals this year, and I bring it down to this. When you get a really good deal and you know you got a freaking slam dunk, you overlook some things. And still a good deal, it's still gonna be great, but overlook some things because you got stars in your eyes when it's side in. And just overlook some things that you normally wouldn't, that you probably could have gotten taken care of. So that's number one. So first of all, I didn't account for holding costs, meaning we're buying it in December. I figured I would have it up and running to be ready to rent by March or April. We don't have the first person staying there until June. So there's 6 months of holding costs. Yep. Yeah. Going into the other thing that I didn't factor or account for, this last one right here, I'm not on Airbnb, I'm not on VRBO, I've never done this as a host. So you look at my profile and it's like 0 reviews, hosting for a month. That raises some eyebrows, right? So I did not account for that, and I didn't think it would be as big of a challenge to get some of those bookings, and it is. So that's one thing. And then account for supplies appropriately. I went into this thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at a few things, I'm like, I just earmarked like 20 grand for renovations and supplies. I think we're at like 42 now. So kind of shot that one to shit too, because I've never done short-term rental. So this place was ran as a resort that had basically repeat clients, and that those clients expected a level of service that is not short-term, like Airbnb, VRBO. They didn't expect there to be towels. They didn't expect there to be coffee there. They didn't expect there to be hand soap. They knew what they were getting. It was a rustic place that slept a boatload of freaking people, and that's all they cared about. So now, curious if your guys' thoughts and anybody else doing short-term rentals, like my assumption is like, okay, Airbnb, VRBO, like the expectations are different. We're expecting hand soap, coffee, towels, beach towels, toys, things like that. Yeah, didn't account for that. So I think we spent $1,400 on pillows last week for 50 some beds or whatever it is. So yeah, didn't account for that. So some mistakes, no doubt. So from the software tools and operations perspective, and this is again, new for me since this is my first jump into it, but I landed on Hostaway as a software property management company. Software property management software. I looked at Hospitable, looked at Hostaway, looked at a couple different other ones, just doing it on Airbnb and VRBO. I like this one for a couple reasons. And one of them was it was really easy to build a direct booking site. It integrated directly with Airbnb, short-term VRBO, Google vacation rentals, Booking.com, and it kind of aggregated all the inboxes into one, your calendars into one. It kind of had a nice way of doing it. It also has some cool integration with Schlage, whatever however you say that, smart locks. So the actual software connects with these locks. So as soon as a guest, 24 hours before they get there, assuming they signed the rental agreement, assuming they paid their full amount, assuming they pay that $1,000 holding deposit, it'll shoot them automatically a unique code to use just for that stay. So instead of having to like text people a code or like having the same code or trying to change it, it kind of like automates all that for you. So I like that. Has dynamic pricing. And you guys know what dynamic pricing is? So it again, like getting into short-term versus for multifamily. Multifamily, you set the rents and they don't really move, right? Maybe they go up 2-3%. You got to reassess every year. Dynamic pricing comes in because you don't know when there's going to be a huge event in this town. It's 2 hours away. There's Emily Days, the third Saturday in August. I don't know that, but what smart pricing does is it knows that demand, it can kind of see that demand, and it adjusts that on a daily basis based on that demand. It's kind of what hotels do, basically. So smart pricing, you basically set a ceiling, you set a floor, and it will set the max pricing based on the demand that's going on in that area. Is that? Yeah.
And seasonality.
Yeah.
Holidays are big too.
Yeah.
It's like in the state fair goes live over by Como Zoom, see all those rentals go nuts down there.
Yeah. We always hear these horror stories of like, I got a short-term rental and I didn't know Taylor Swift was coming, so I could have charged $15,000 a night, and instead I got it at $500 a night. So it kind of helps from that. Yeah.
Is any of that going to be impacted by some of the laws that are coming out about AI-driven pricing and stuff?
I don't know. I know they just passed something in Minneapolis from a multifamily perspective for using like algorithm setting prices with an algorithm. Hospitality would be. I mean, it's not like housing, right? How people get sensitive about housing because it's housing, not a vacation.
But can't you just like exploring the idea for a second there? Can't you just like look at the calendar, know someone's coming into town, and logically conclude that like there's going to be an event there, therefore you can charge more for those dates? Just like concert tickets or something like that, or like seating prices, like.
And you can
extract
override it.
that.
You can do it yourself.
Yeah, so like I think in that case it might be more fair unless you're literally having an AI shout at you saying this is what we're doing now.
What? That's what it does. It automatically sets these prices.
That's a good question though.
Yeah, it will be interesting as you're deep in the AI space right now, as regulation comes out about how to use that and how you can't use it. I don't know. I think vacation seems a little bit more protected because people don't get as sensitive about it. Actually, another part of the reason why I like this property. You guys know how people, when they ban short-term rentals in an area, do you know how they do it usually?
Like city limits?
Yeah, well, based on what?
The amount of the
Registry?
Yeah, exactly. So they usually say, this is zoned residential, you're performing commercial activity. So that's how they usually get away So this is a commercial property, zone commercial, and so if they ever ban short-term rentals, I
You're
like
still
that.
allowed to
You're
use
still
that.
fine, that's a resort.
What's
You're
that?
still fine because it's a resort.
Yeah, because of the zoning. There's a couple different like houses that are zoned commercial up on in that area as well. There's one that was on the market last year. I think it's on the market again. It was an old hair salon, but they converted it to a house, so it still retains that zoning. So if you ever see something like that where it's got that carried forward zoning, it's a kind of a safe haven if they ever change the laws. It's a really cool looking house, but
Back to the dynamic pricing, like, do you know more about how, where it's, like, is it scanning ticket master, is it scanning
I don't.
like?
Good
like
question.
Other Airbnb pricing in that area, that's what I'm curious about, is where it's actually getting that demand from.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like Price Labs, like for us, Price Labs doesn't know, like when there's a big golf tournament in town, because we have a lot of golf courses down by us, it doesn't necessarily know those. It's definitely looking at influx of what other people are charging, and it starts incorporating that into the patterns and the things it looks at. But so what I do is I have to constantly scan like how many events are coming, and then maybe just pop those weekends up a little bit higher. But with Price Labs, it's not as good at that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's like, it's basically like running comps in real time. Like,
Yeah.
if you compare it to like a long.
Yeah.
And it asks you too, like, is your property in the top 90 or 75 or 50? And you kind of, based upon your competition, you kind of said, I want to be in that 50 or 75, which is kind of where we sit. And we actually drive a lot of business to ours because I think ours is nicer than the people at the 90. And so we sacrifice a little bit of the daily rate to get the volume of people throughout the summer. So, but you can play with all those numbers. It comes back with suggestions, recommendations. You can override it. You can constantly change it however you want. It's just a nice tool. You just go and check it, just set it, forget it for a while, and come back, validate
tweak it.
where you're at.
You can compare amenities for similar properties that have different amenities, you can see what their daily rates look like.
Yeah. And that's why, like, after that conversation, you and I had coffee a week or two ago about like, this is a new asset for me, but I'm super excited because it's different than multifamily where you set your rents and like it kind of is what it is. Like you can get a little bit more than the rest of the people by making your unit nice and marketing it and all that other thing. But there's so many levers that you can pull in a class like this where it's like, and talk about like pontoon rentals and there's literally one down the street from us that is like probably $9,000 or $10,000 pontoon. They charge $1,000 a week and it's freaking booked every time. Firewood or whatever these other like amenities you can add to it, and it's commercial property. Remember, and it's funny looking at the appraisal on this one. They put it at what we call a 9 cap because it was ran kind of like mom and pop, right? But if we can truly get to like that $99,000 NOI, and if you look at the range of cap rates that this appraiser had on it, it was anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5. So if you got $100,000 NOI, you guys know how to get to a valuation of a commercial property with cap rate and NOI. So you take your $100,000 in NOI, and then just divide it by the cap rate. So if we can get it down to a 0.075 cap rate, $1.3 million valuation. And I think there's other opportunities like the pontoon, like the other streams of income to be able to juice that up. It's a little bit more leverage to play with than you do in the multifamily.
Just boil that down, that's 10% NOI is roughly the valuation of or 10 times the valuation of the NOI is the valuation of the property.
It's a factor of the cap rate in the NOI. So you take your NOI, it's $100,000, and divide it by the cap rate, which on a stabilized performing asset would be 7.5 cap.
Okay.
Same thing you do commercial apartment complexes and
Yeah.
things like that. Same concept.
Okay.
Cool, sweet. Questions? Alright. So here's the numbers to date. So we've got, I opened it up in March, I think, for bookings. We've got $69,000 in bookings. Our occupancy for the whole year is 14%. So.
But you're already higher than what the rent roll for previously.
Exactly.
14% booking.
Well, and my holding cost for the entire freaking year is $65,000.
Right.
And I've got no money in this deal. So I'm okay with these numbers for a couple of reasons. One, because my occupancy for June through September is 31%, and the entire year is 14%. I'd be curious what your guys' thoughts are. We're seeing people book like 30 to 60 days in advance.
He's got an October 2026 booking.
Yeah, so
Maybe it's just me.
we're near a popular wedding venue bookings for summer of
Yeah.
2026.
Nice. Yeah.
And fall.
Do you coordinate with the venue as well to like see when your bookings are gonna happen across market with them at all?
Just talked to them a little bit, made sure they knew we were there.
They came
People
and
find
vetted our
us.
property
Yeah.
and then.
Gotcha. That's
we're one of-
interesting.
one
Sauna
of-
cool.
camps went through too, and they posted a good Instagram open next winter to get a lot out of town too, so.
Alright.
Yeah, that's a whole other aspect of it, like the social aspect. I was there this morning taking professional photos and getting the drone and some videos done, and she's like, "You should do an Instagram for it." I'm like, "Seems like a lot of work, but
Yeah.
probably should." So yeah, 70 grand, a little under $70,000 in bookings. Like I said, we opened it up February or March-ish, and I was not anticipating as much pushback on the fact that I don't have any reviews, profiles, or anything. So we got 2 reviews recently. Thanks, Logan. Thanks for standing.
I got you.
And we did see a nice pickup in inquiries as well. But yeah, so we're at pro forma's 140K just for the summer at 85% occupancy. So we're basically 70 grand just from June through end of August. I'm all right with that. I think next year they'll be probably close to that $140, and if not, still gonna be an all right deal too.
Did you offer any, like, because it's new on a platform, any discounts or anything like that as well?
Yeah, like the standard, like 20%.
Yeah.
I think 10 or 20. I can't remember what they suggested.
Yeah, and in the messaging too, you can just explain like this is a well-established, I don't know if you went
Yeah.
through it.
I did. The other thing that I think was holding me back is that there was just really garbage photos.
Yeah,
And I didn't want to take any photos of February because, like,
right, right.
why would you do that? It's got phenomenal sandy beach, and so, and I wanted to do some stuff to it. So we just got those photos done today. I think that will help a lot too.
Are you shutting down in September?
No,
You are carrying it through, right?
Yeah. Yep. There's 2 out of the 3 buildings are 4 seasons. The little cabin on like the little lake is at 3 seasons. So I got to look at what it would take to fully insulate that thing and make it a 4 season.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have it year round.
Could you piggyback from the views of the previous owners where they say I stayed there in 2022 and try and carry
Yeah,
on?
that's a good point. I don't know. I probably could. They had a Google page that had 4.8 out of 5 stars with like 20 reviews on it. So I got that transferred, and now I just redirect it to my direct booking site. But they can't transfer it directly to like Airbnb and VRBO, so it won't help in like the search and the algorithm. But I wonder if there's a way to integrate that
Yeah.
to show people. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. We'll have to look into that.
Well, there could review vote of confidence in like what you're doing now with the property based on what it was and like the improvements that you made from it.
Yeah.
It's that history with it, right? That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Did you get the domain?
Not the domain yet. I'm trying to get it still. Yeah, after we talk.
So I
got
guess
the.
from Google Vacation Rentals, I'm wondering if the domain stays the same and you can like do a doing business as, you can maybe be able to put
Yeah.
this together and still be able to show.
Yeah. That's a good point. No, I got the Google My Business page going, and then just redirect theirs to the our direct booking site now. So we'll see. So
So did you use, so you said you just got pictures done?
yeah, this morning.
So,
Yep.
instead of, you said you didn't want to take them in February, so what, did you get pictures from the previous owners or?
Yeah, I took like their super basic ones and the ones off, the Google reviews. Actually, it's these ones right here. These are the pictures from the previous Google reviews and whatnot. So, but they were cell phone pictures. They were not fantastic. What's up, guys? Hey guys, this is Curtis, who lets us use the space every freaking month. So. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for making use of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too. So yeah, there's the 3. There's 4 up there because something that I did recently. Actually, I haven't. You guys know Michael Elefante? You ever heard of him in that short-term rental space? He's big luxury short-term rental. If you want to know anything about short-term rentals, go follow that guy. I was having breakfast with him, and he suggested that I do a master listing. So I've got a master listing, which basically syncs the calendars for all 3 of these, and I've got it up there as like sleeping 57. So then, if you want to book the entire thing, you can do that. And actually, we might look at. A photographer talked to me this morning. She's like, "You should look at doing weddings." Like, how much can I charge for a wedding?
I've said the same thing to you too.
Yeah.
I've got contacts and they had another wedding over there, so I was talking about
I mean,
it.
it's only 2 hours north. Like, what could you charge for a weekend on a wedding? You get like 15, 20 grand?
I've had a few people try to book our place for a wedding. One without our permission and it was horrible. But anyway, so like.
Is that the one that
people are-
it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's more term, yeah, it's true, but, I mean, they're paying at least $10,000 for a menu on average for just hosting the actual ceremony, so there's a margin to be made, but yes, they're probably
Yeah,
more
if it's an
than
approved
right.
item, it's a lot better, and this
Yeah.
was not expected, right?
Yeah, we're
And we
not
make no
prepared
extra,
for it yet.
we make no extra money off of it, we lost $7,000 in floor repairs.
Jeez.
So,
What'd they do?
They burned wood
They
floor.
burned through the hardwood floors.
What?
I couldn't
Revenge
even
is
tell
that
you
hard?
how it happened.
Yeah, Airbnb's insurance is
Air
crap.
cover sucks.
Drew, is that how your wedding went?
There's no fight.
Yeah.
We won't go into it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Alright, I'm always trying to think of like ways to de-risk it. So like these buildings are old, right? They were built in the 60s. I've got no money down on the deal, but I've got a $200,000 note that's coming due in 5 years, right? So
What about like Boy Scouts and stuff?
yeah, they actually, funny enough, that like who built a 12-bedroom house? This 12-bedroom lodge was for the Boy Scouts back in whatever 60s, 70s, whenever it was built. So yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know how to market those guys, but yeah, it's my first year is like, all right, let's get this shit filled, stabilize it, and get some people in there, and then we're gonna have some of those ideas and try to see what I can do next year.
Or do like little church retreats or something.
Yeah,
And,
business retreats. I'm thinking, definitely thinking for the winter. 'Cause
The winter, yeah.
Winter camps, like
Yeah.
outside, sleeping in the snow, but if you get too cold, you can come back in, like, that's
Yeah.
why the scouts and some of those things, the weekends could help you out.
Yeah.
In the winter.
Yeah, and winter amenities. So at the end of the summer, we're gonna look at. So this is a little cabin right here, and actually, funny thing is, it was built so long ago. It's like 10 feet from the lake. You can't build those that close anymore. The setbacks. So it's grandfathered in, but it needs flood insurance because it's so close. So we had to get a little bit of flood insurance. But we're gonna do barrel sauna. We're gonna do hot tub. Some nice things like that. That'll hopefully attract people in the winter.
Do some like ice races or cross country skiing. Or
Yeah, I mean it's right on.
Just
Yeah.
crowdsourcing his ideas for this property.
I mean, I'm learning. Yeah, keep it coming.
Do a light show.
Actually,
What lake is that?
it's like Mary.
Lake Mary? Okay. I'm just north of there in Audi.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Just,
You got contractors, because that's another lane. Like contractors and this, like up there, like they're different breeds. So
it's very different up there. Yes,
sure as
it's
hell is.
very political. My dad brought in a guy to harvest his tree farm
Yeah.
from the wrong area. And, it turned out pretty ugly, not for us, but for the other people
Yeah.
that ended up hiring this guy.
I had 6 people scheduled last week. One of them showed up. So it's it's tough to get people to work up there apparently, but
You ever gonna do like events in the, cause I know there's a place next to kind of where I live. They're on the lake and they've got like a bar and then they've got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 Airbnbs.
Yeah.
And then in the wintertime, they like post everywhere, they have these little events, they get like a Zamboni, not a Zamboni, but they get like a thing on the ice to make like a track and then they
Yeah.
put buggies and stuff out there and make like a
I,
whole event.
well, on that note, somebody suggested do a skating, like not
Yeah.
on the lake, but like actual, like do like one of those backyard skating rinks and like
Yeah.
ring it up with rope lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Then it becomes more of a business. I'm trying to decide like, okay, it's gonna cash flow good where it's at. Like, how much do I want to additional?
This is definitely not a passive income.
No, it's not. No.
But what's cool about it is, and kind of what you were saying earlier, is that with this short-term rental property that you open up, you open up this oyster, and you have so many different paths that you can go to to generate revenue, and it's just all creative stuff where you can kind of play ball, right?
You can choose
Or-
if you want to, and if you don't.
Right, and you still got the cash flowing asset, which is the rental or Airbnb side, but with like a long-term rental property with residential, the duplexes, the triplexes, you're kind of boxed in like you
Yeah.
were saying before.
Yeah,
Now,
they're steady. You can pass it. You can put them in the back pocket and
Right.
keep going for a while.
but you just opened up like how many ideas for people around?
Yeah.
Like 13 of them?
Do you know anything about like the long-term levels of the lake? I'm just thinking that being that close, I've seen some properties get some real damage.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've seen some pretty drastic
Next month
changes
you'll
in
see a
the
learning
lake.
slide.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of them in the north are on like a 20, like, I hear a lot about like 20, 30 year cycles.
I think
So, that's a lot long-term, but.
It wasn't that. It was. I want to say it was like 100-year flood, like flood zone. But
Plus it's small, you can just check it out.
well, it's actually it is. It looks like it's like a manufactured on blocks basically. So it would not be.
Then it's true lakefront,
It's what?
true lakefront.
Yeah,
Like, underneath it, get the little glass.
You could probably fish from the.
There you go. Then we could get some bookings on that.
You go in the middle.
Yeah.
You could probably wheel it out onto the ice and it'd be like an ice shed.
There you go.
Let's not get too crazy, right? It's got septic as
So
well.
we're
and
gonna
everything.
make this deal and make this everybody's little individual business on the property.
Yeah.
That's kind of where this is going.
But they've never gotten water in it in 20 years. The flood insurance was dirt cheap. It was like $700 a year. So I'm assuming they're not looking at it as a big risk. But yeah, maybe we'll see.
Yeah, no, I've seen properties there, I mean, where the water just comes up and it like goes completely surrounds the structure and people, I mean, it's mostly private residences, but they'll have like, what they'll call like beach houses or something that are down close to, that
Yeah.
are grandfathered in, but then, you know, you just have 1 year with a lot of rain and all
Yeah.
of a sudden those things are in the water.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. They've never had it in 20 years, so hopefully we can keep that going. But I think that's part of the allure of this place is like, it's got you can't see it here because it's shitty pictures, but it's got a big window and it's like you're right on the lake. Like you barely even see the ground under. So like, I think that's going to bring people in, for just that view, right? And then we might move this over and throw that little barrel sauna right there so you can be right on the lake looking at it. And another thing that I'm trying to figure out how to monetize is this is the only launch on the lake is I own it. So I had 50 calls this spring of all of the lake owners and the neighbors saying like, hey, we gotta put our docks in and our boats in, and I just let them do it for free because I want to get in the good graces of the owners. But then I had the marinas calling me saying, hey, we put all the docks into the lake. Like, can we use yours? I'm like, you put my docks in for free? Yup. I mean, there's some opportunities there. So
Be
That's
careful
an
with
interesting demand curve.
yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You lift your dock out on the lake?
Well, like, do you have to have a license for that many people to go out if you start charging for that? Do you have to have a marinas license or something like that, or is that a thing?
Probably not there.
Ask permission, was it?
That's probably not there.
No, probably
A lot
not.
less, a little bit.
I will say, just be careful messing with people's, like, access to lakes and stuff. I mean, they have long memories.
And that was my thing. It's like neighbors. I'm like, yes, neighbors. You guys absolutely free. I want to make sure people know it's not a public lunch. Don't have like everybody like it's not. And the neighbors appreciate not having a public lunch either because it keeps more people off the lake.
Right.
But with the marinas, like I want to buy some pontoons, right? So like, you want to do that. Like, I want to try to work neighbors with them, not the neighbors. 100%. Good graces with the neighbors.
Yeah.
So I don't even need calls and things like that. Yeah. Sweet. What else we got? Oh, hey, next event, June 19th. We are doing a panel with a couple absolute freaking killers. You guys know any of these guys? Vicino? Dude's a killer, right? $100 million real estate, hundreds of millions of views on YouTube, best-selling author, phenomenal dude. We're gonna have these three guys. We're gonna do what's working in 2025. So it's a Twin Cities. What am I calling it? Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Summit. What's working in 2025? So we're gonna have it right here, June 19th, 6:30. We're actually partnering with another crew. Who is it? It's you changed the name. Fuse. Thank you. I was trying to think of their old name. Yeah. Fuse RE, which if you guys remember out there for a little bit, left there, but still love Ryan and the team over there. We're gonna partner with them. They have a Minnesota Real Estate Investors Club, which is down in the South Metro, more towards you guys. Sorry, we're doing it here. They run that group down there.
We'll host it at our Airbnb, how's that sound?
Okay. You hold me to that. We might do it then.
Yeah, if we have the habit to do that.
That actually
We should do that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we should connect on that. It's already locked for the June 19th, but it'll be here June 19th with these guys, Fuse RE with the Real Estate Investor. What do they call it? Real Estate Investor Minnesota Club something.
Maria? Is that what you're talking about? Or?
Close, but not really. It's been going on for like 5 or 6 years, the meetup. So we're gonna combine these two meetups for one. Do the panelists with these three. Actually, Faith, 50 short-term rentals. She runs across the country in the Caribbean. Like I said, Anthony Ficino, best-selling author, absolute killer in the multifamily space. Huge social guy as well. And then True Neighbor, Gus owns True Neighbor, who I think it's 200 some flips that he's done. A lot of direct to seller, actually a lot of AI in their outreach and their funnels for wholesaling and flipping as well. So I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be fun and some new faces up here. Sweet. Questions?
Do you have any open weekends this summer?
Yeah, actually, too. You can get a discount if you leave me 5-star review.
I will do
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why don't we all just go on there and book it, you can refund us and we'll just.
Well, because as I found out, I already did that maybe once or twice. So it cost me
Everybody
like,
go on the link and just tell them.
cost me like $200 for a review, so. Yeah.
With your, so in the seller financing portion, did you find they were more open to a higher cost or a higher interest rate? Like, 'cause with seller financing, you can change any term you
Yeah.
want.
Yep.
What was the lever that they found most appealing?
They wanted that price. So they wanted that, that right around 500 to a million, then we got to 650, then we did the inspection, we got to 640, and then we adjusted the rate down to 4.25. But they wanted that number. And that sellers, a lot of times that's what they're stuck on, is that number. I don't know if it's anything or what, but yeah, they wanted that 640.
Because you got your interest rate at pretty low market.
Yep. To get them that price. And it's really just a math game, right? So if I'm gonna pay 6% or 4.5%, what is that over the 5 years? And if I'm paying more for the property than it gets worth, well, it's gotta be not more than what I'm paying for that additional interest rate over that 5 years, right?
Just interest only
Yeah.
and no principal.
Yeah. Which is good in the cash flow perspective, but in the back of my mind, like,
Yeah.
you gotta either refi or you gotta have that $200,000 note.
So
My
that's-
assumption is that they're just gonna redo that again, up that again for another 5 years as long as they're on good health.
Oh, so they would just give you an opportunity to just
Keep doing it.
keep doing it for
Yep.
another 5 years.
Yeah, well, I'll probably tell them they can use the property again for the next 5 years. Yeah, keep them on there.
The kids,
Otherwise-
yeah, next generation, yeah.
What's that?
Next generation, kids.
Yeah, exactly. You can have it for a week without owning it, but yeah.
Otherwise, your thought is to just save up 40 grand a year roughly from your profits and
Yeah.
have the balloon payment ready.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's no different than like a lot of commercial deals. They're all on usually 3, 5, or 7-year notes. You guys know what a schedule of real estate owned is? So if you get into applying for commercial loans, you got to provide a personal financial statement. Part of that is a schedule of real estate owned, which is every property you own with the percentage, with the note, percentage of ownership. I mean, what type of property it is. So when I look at my schedule of real estate owned, once a week basically, that has that maturity date, and I kind of know what loans are coming up that I have to refinance. So that's one way to keep track of it. But yeah, you got that $200,000 hanging over your head that you either gotta make sure that you have it at that point in time or get ready to refinance it.
Do you ever fully pay off any of your properties at all?
I don't know if I ever would. I mean, there's a velocity of money is just so important when you're trying to. If I was in like the maintain mode of like, hey, I just want to keep the wealth and not grow it, like maybe, but not at this point in time. It's scale mode.
Yeah, fair enough. Just curious, because like you had so many doors, I didn't know if you had a couple that you're like, these are the protected ones, and then everything else is just, going nuts.
No, I thought about it with the fourplex. The fourplex is, I think it's like a $400,000 note on it, and its cash flow is like, the rent's under like $8,500. So thought about it with that, but then it's just like, no, I want to refi it to the hilt and then go put that in something else. As long as they're good assets, as long as you feel good about keeping them.
Okay.
So when you went to negotiating, like, around seller financing, I'm assuming you did a lot of math and then worked backwards from
Yeah.
there. So you did all your projections on, okay, this is what I think we're gonna bring in, and then kinda got comfortable with what range you could work in a little bit.
Yeah, and I approached it with knowing that I was gonna buy it either way. I just didn't want to sink $220,000 with closing costs into one deal. I thought it would still make sense, like the cash flow in it would still make sense, but it's in a new asset class and the thing that I'm not super familiar with, so I wanted to de-risk it. So like, I knew it was a good deal. I ran it kind of the numbers kind of as if it would for bank financing. It was still good cash flow. But then asking the questions, trying to figure out what they want, figuring out that he's in lending already, so he kind of understands this. A lot of old school real estate investors understand this because this is how it was done in the 80s and the 90s when your interest rates were freaking 20% or 18%, whatever. So yeah, just trying to figure out the number. But I was like, I wouldn't go into a deal, put it under contract. The only way I could close it is seller financing because it's still pretty rare. But it's just kind of like, hey, is the deal good enough, and then will this sweeten the pot?
So your first step was talk to the owners and just say, hey, are you even interested in selling?
Yeah.
Then you ask them what their kind of price was.
Yeah, well, I talked to them, and that same exact thing. I emailed them, and it was like 2 weeks later, and I finally got their number, and they got back to me like, she sent me to the one person that kind of deals with everything. Like, yeah, we've kind of been considering it, right? Because we've been going for 20 years. We're all kind of getting older. And then they kind of told me the problem. Like, well, we need a place. We looked around. Can't find any place that sleeps 50 people for our reunion. I'm like, gotcha. Problem solved. So then went through that and started trying to figure out a number. And this one's like 500 to a million. I'm like, that's a big range. Like, let's start at 500. And just kind of worked it from there. Yep. Yep. They actually tried to sell it on their own, like for sale by owner, many years ago for, I think it was that 650, and like nobody bid, but like they had it on one like obscure like Emily Elton Brainerd like for sale by owner website. So like that wasn't really truly testing the market. And then there's that single family house that sold like down the road that was like in the 8s. So I kind of knew like roughly where it would fall, but yeah, that's kind of how it started. It was a long, I mean, I think it was 3 or 4 months of chats, but.
Were they receptive when you brought up seller financing and then carrying it out?
Yeah, yep, they were.
You said they were a mortgager, right?
Huh?
You said they were a mortgager, right?
Yeah, he got it he had to convince a couple other family members to do it as well, which is kind of always tough because you're talking to him and convincing them, but then he's doing that with those other guys. It's like, game of telephone, but it did help a lot that he was a commercial lender now. But they wanted some of that money, like $700 a month, a couple people, like for not doing anything. It's not bad. I mean, you could take that $200 grand and put it in, you get more for it, but.
Depends on risk tolerance and what they want to do with it.
And I think there was an emotional factor. Like, I think they wanted some tie to the property still, even if it's just from the lender side. Yep. What else?
Well, what bank did you use?
It's a bank out of Duluth called Members Cooperative. Members Cooperative? Yeah, look at this. Members Cooperative Credit Union. So I started with Bridgewater down here because we do a lot of commercial stuff with them. And they're like, you gotta put 25% in. I'm like, well, why? Financing everything, and it still checks out, and they just won't have it. We're not flexible. Looked at a couple different banks down here on the commercial side as well, and then actually the bank the sellers bought it from was Members Cooperative, so they already had the debt on it, and it was not a lot. It was like 60 grand that they had left on the note, but they're familiar with the property, so that helped a lot.
When you're talking about seller financing in general to sellers, a lot of times they hear it and they're not really receptive. But if they're selling off a portfolio or something, they're getting away from capital gains by getting that monthly payment every month. So how do you negotiate it just in general with sellers?
Well, I don't ask them. The question is not like, have you ever heard of seller financing? Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
It's how would it feel if I got you that same amount of cash flow without owning the asset? Because a lot of these times there's an 8-unit in that triplex right now that we're both proposing these with, and it's like the dude's got the rent so low that we can literally pay him more in principal and interest than he's making owning the asset. So it's like, okay, you're making like $2 grand a month in cash on this 8-unit because you guys can rent it out like $900 or $800. So we're gonna buy it from you. We're gonna pay, I think it was $2,800 a month, $2,900 a month for the first 3 years because it's interest only, and we're gonna pay you $3,500 a month for the years after that. Literally making more than you're doing all the work, you're managing it yourself, you're going there to fix things up, like you're gonna make more, and that's how we talk about it too. And then we talk about the tax benefit and things along those lines. And they're usually always like, well, I don't want to take that asset back. I'm like, well, why would you? Put down 50 grand down or whatever the amount is, like you get that asset back, and they just want to make sure it's in good condition. So that's when we usually say like, well, we're personally guaranteeing it. Here's your personal financial statement. Here's our balance sheet to show, we've got more than if we do kind of screw you over and go to bankruptcy, whatever. There's a lot to come after. What else? Like your hotel music behind here, so it's not so dull. Cool. All right. Well, here's my contact information. If you guys need anything, let me know. This deal table. Who's got a deal? Anybody have a deal that they're trying to get rid of right now? Oh, okay. Who wants a deal? Who's looking for a deal right now? What are you looking for? Small multi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Small multi and a single, right?
Single.
You're moving.
Who else is looking for a deal?
you know about us.
Yeah, okay, yeah, small multi.
You wanna buy another business?
Still licking my wounds.
What was that we said earlier? You miss 100% the shots you don't take.
Alright, when you risk it.
So you got business plan.
Yeah.
What else? What do you guys up to?
I'm always
Just trying to figure out how to do it
That's easy.
Yeah.
without having to
So much
manage.
effort.
We wanna take our hospitality, yeah, like our short-term rental experience and
Yeah.
figure out how to do, kind of what you're doing, and I think it's a really good,
Magnifier.
a good price point, and there's so many cool ideas, like adding tiny homes, glamping experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
yeah,
There's
domes,
yeah.
yeah.
You guys, sorry, go. Who's on Instagram? Go look at Elefante and look at this property we just bought. You put a nine-hole golf course on the property. Like the domes, the stargazing domes, they're like, I don't know, like yay big, and you can go out there and in the night and look at this freaking sweet. But okay, cool. Well, if anybody's looking for this, there are a couple that are on the table. If anybody's looking for small multifamily, there's this whole thing of like, okay, you need the deal, you need the money. There's people here who have money, there's people here who have deals. Like, network, figure some things out, see if we can put some things together. But if not, just have a good time and throw some darts too. Cool.
Eat the food.
Yeah, eat the food too, or else Mason's going home with it. So, cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.